There it is, the 765 board that I'm going to use in the Caprina 2 is soldered up after a fashion. I really do need to get my solder ability tuned back up. This one I had to do backwards because of the closeness of that positive ESC lug. Come on. There we go. So that first red one is kind of going towards the center of the board, just so it stays away from that hot on the ESC going out. The other ones are soldered in, going outboard on the board, and go over to the BEC board, where again they're soldered on. And I can't pull them off, so I'm going to leave them at that. Don't know what else to do with them. So here comes the big test. Plug it in. We have a red indicator on our BEC board. Everything's cool. We have our normal lights over here. So far as I can currently tell, we've got a good board. So this is that second 765 board. I'm not going to do anything else to it. So I'm going to fix these wires so they'll bend in the middle. I'm going to bend this board over like a ice cream sandwich. And then we'll go ahead and put all the hardware back on it and see where we get. There is the 765 wing that I'm going to use in the Caprina 2 put back together. It's soldered as much as I'm going to solder on it. 3 wires for the upper BEC board, and a wire for the incoming battery, and the wire to go out to the ESC. And I'm going to solder straight to these solder pads inside the Caprina 2 because I don't have enough height inside the equipment bay for pins. Let's see if it still runs. Plug it in, and we have the LED on the BEC telling us everything's good, and we have our normal lights on the 765 board. We'll assume everything is good there. This one I tried some different things here. I've got my oops, come on, focus, there we go. I've got my solder pads tinned. You can see the one on the far left, negative battery, positive battery next to it, then negative positive ESC. Got the 3 little VTX ground and VX right above that, tinned, and then all the way out to the right, the negative on the ESC. That I hope is going to give me room to bring those 3 wires through the center of that ESC and make that just a little better than it was on my last one. And then I also soldered up the 9-volt pad right over here. Well, that's as good as I'm going to get it. There's the little 9-volt pad bridged. So Gonna do a little different. This is the 743 wing. Well, there it is. Soldered up. So I was able to get those 3 wires for V background and VX between the 2 leads on the outgoing ESC on the right. So that's better than trying to do those 2 solder pads. So there's that soldered up. We're going to power this up, and as you can see, when I power it up, get the red light on the BEC board, get the flashing lights on the flight controller itself, and then I do get a light now out here on the compass. I was not getting this light. I had a suspicion that the voltage wasn't being applied to this CAN bus down here until this BEC was soldered on, and we're getting our voltage back through this wire here, I think. And that powers this UART down through here on the 765, and this one, there's no power there until this board is working, and there was no power at all to the compass until this board was working. So now let's go out and look at iNav and see what we have with iNav. So we did not start iNav because this doesn't work with iNav. I keep forgetting that. This is the 743 wing. But if you notice right here on the left top of the screen, when I connect with ArduPilot Mission Planner, I have a GPS 3D fix now, 4 satellites. I'd like to have more, but I like that for right now. I at least have the GPS finally working. There is the H743 wing all soldered up. I have the pins from servo 1 down through servo 13 and all the pins up through here soldered on. The BEC board and the 2 pigtails for the battery and ESC have been soldered on. Now we just turn it on here and see if we get smoke, or no, we get normal lights. Cool. Now let's see if we can get it closed up. There is one other small thing I need to point out, and that is right here is a chip, and I don't know if you can see right at the end of my pointer is a hole in the chip. That's the barometer for the board, and that's the hole where the air pressure is taken in. This little pad right here in the bottom of the 743 wing is to kind of be placed over that chip and hole so that the air pressure that gets to it is not a result of any kind of wind or anything. It just kind of, so you make better when you get ready to put this back on, make sure that pad is lined up over this barometer hole. So this actually goes on this way and then just pushes down. That's all there is to that, but you need to get that barometer covered or it won't read correctly. 4 little standoffs here, and we'll fold it over and put some screws in it. Get them all started a little bit. They're pretty small. Yeah, there we go. Got two of them started on either corner. So basically we're home free now. The only thing left is, does it work properly when it's connected to power again? Any step along the way can be the last one. So, oops, get these tightened down, just hand tight. Probably can't see anything I'm doing. Just one last little touch of the 4 screws. There we go. Okay, there it is, back together. Pins all soldered on. Everything ready to go. So let's see if it still lives. Hey, look at that. No smoke. I like it. So there's the 765 board that I'm going to use in the Caprahina. Was soldered up with no pins on all the solder pads because I'm going to solder directly to them because of space limitations in the Caprahina. And then we have a 743 wing here that I did solder all the pins on because I need to experiment with this one. I soldered the BEC in and the 2 pigtails on that one. And then we have the original 765 that I put all the pins on except for some in this area that I'm using on the test bench and probably will use as a replacement when like this one goes south. So there we are. We finished all the soldering. That soldering was pretty much a terror for me, so I'm gonna probably try to quit doing a lot of soldering. One of the reasons I did all the soldering at this time and also added the 743 wing in was I had this compass. It's a CAN bus compass. Got a CAN bus right in here. And I couldn't get it working. And I was suspicious because of the 743 wing that I didn't have power on UART 7 or the camera ports, etc. until the BEC board was connected and running. When I couldn't get even a power light to come on the GPS after I plugged it into this CAN bus, because this is the first 743 I've ever worked with, I decided to solder it up so I could get the BEC board on. That kind of pushed this at the same time we were working on this 765 wing, because I had a suspicion that I wasn't getting power to the GPS until the BEC board was working. And if I power up now, you can see my suspicion was founded. Now we do have power to the GPS. I don't know if there's a compass in here. I think in some of my speaking I've called it a compass. I suspect there's a compass in there. Frequently there is. And with all these buses on there, I would think that there's probably a compass in there. Anyway, I'll look at that a little deeper when we go into the 743 connections. We're going to back up and do what we were doing and do the 765 connections and then come back to the 743 connections in detail. I just needed to get these boards soldered up and pins on this one and this one ready to go. Anyway, you can see now I do have power to the board. So my suspicion was, and if I put this one on, I can duplicate the problem. This should illustrate what I'm talking about. So right now I've got the flight controller powered up from the USB, and you can see the controller itself is running, but there is no power on the GPS, no light on the GPS. So when I was working with this without the BEC board connected, because there's no power to some of these ports, and the CAN bus port I was suspicious was one of them, I couldn't finish what I was trying to do because couldn't get a GPS running. But now, as you can see, when I come over here, this is just a power switch on a LiPo battery. That's all that's going on there. When I turn the actual power on from the battery, then the CAN bus actually gets powered up. So that's why I was working on soldering up and discussing the connections of the 765 board. I was having problems with some GPSs, so I got a second board with a CAN bus to work with these CAN bus GPSs because couldn't get them to work. Well, I actually do get them to work on the 765, but I have to use a UART port over here. I actually can get them to work and get the airspeed sensor to pass through, but I just needed to work with the GPSs a little deeper. So I got this so I could work with the CAN bus portion, but then when I plugged it into this 743 wing, it didn't power up, didn't do anything. And then again, I was suspicious that it wasn't powering up because the BEC board wasn't soldered on. That's when I kind of was at the standpoint position or point of soldering up the 765 wing and discussing all the ports on it. I decided to go ahead and solder up the 743 wing at the same time, and my suspicions proved to be true. That gets me a power on the GPS now, and the GPS actually works in Ardu plane, and the 765 works and the 743 works. That's the end of my soldering experience here, and I'm not sure how much soldering I'm going to do in the future. At 67 and a half, something like that, years old. My hands don't shake badly. It's just this small, tedious work's just not my cup of tea anymore. By the way, look, we have a flashing green light now, in addition to the blue light on the GPS, which shows that it is locked up. It's got satellites. And we also have the same green light flashing on the 743 wing, indicating we have GPS lock. All right, let's move on to something else, which will be discussing all the parts on the 765 wing and how they work and how to connect to them. And then we'll do the same thing on the 743 wing. Because after all of them, including one 765 with pins on it, they're all three ready to go.